good morning, and I hope you're having a beautiful, beautiful day. My name is Abhilash, and I am from the AD Solutions team here at ManageEngine, and I will be your presenter for the virtual product demo series today. Today is the day three of ManageEngine's virtual product demo series. The first two sessions were conducted by Sharada and Andy, and they were based on AD Self-Service Plus and Log 360. Today, we will be taking a look at ADAudit Plus. So for most of you out here who've been using ADAudit Plus from a while, uh, there are a few improvements, there are a few new features that you can look forward to. For those of you who've adopted ADAudit Plus just a few days before or who newly adopted ADAudit Plus, we will be going through a short product demo of ADAudit Plus as well. So a warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining in on today's session. Thank you so much for taking out the time. And before I proceed with today's ADAudit Plus product demo, I just wanted to run a quick audio and video check because I'm working from home and I'm pretty sure most of you all are working from home as well. So I just wanted to make sure that my voice is reaching to you well and clear. So if my voice is well and audible without any distortion, without any breakage in the audio, if you could give me a confirmation using the chat window, that would be extremely helpful. Thank you so much, Tommy. Thank you so much, Frankie, Rich. Thank you so much for your responses, guys. I hope you can see the video as well. Uh, this entire session that's happening today is going to be recorded, and the recording will be shared to you on your email IDs. If you haven't received the previous two recordings of AD Self-Service Plus and Log 360, please do let me know using the chat window, and I'll make sure that the recordings are sent to your email address as well. And yes, if you've got any questions, you've got the Q&A tab right in front of you. Please keep your questions coming. I'll do my best to answer your questions during this demos, during the product demo. If I miss answering your questions, please do not worry. The last 10 to 15 minutes will be a dedicated Q&A session. So I will be answering your questions then as well. And if you have anything on your mind, if you'd like to ask me anything later during the day, post today's webinar, you've got my email ID in front of me. That's abi@manageengine.com, abi@manageengine.com. Just shoot me an email and I'd be more than happy to help you out. And if you have any technical issues with ADAudit Plus or any support related queries, I'm pretty sure you already have our support email addresses. They'll be more than happy to help you out with any issues you may have with respect to ADAudit Plus, any technical issues. All right. So what are we going to discuss in today's demo? The whole idea of today's demo is catered towards two kinds of customers or two kinds of people. The first kind are people who've been using ADAudit Plus for a long time. So I'm going to try and ensure that I walk you through the new features of ADAudit Plus, and also for the people who are new out there, for the people who haven't worked with ADAudit Plus from a long time or who haven't realized the fullest potential of ADAudit Plus, I'm going to take you through a quick product demo as well. All right. So what are we going to discuss today? And why do we need ADAudit Plus in the first place? Right. So what purpose does ADAudit Plus solve for you? How can it help you as an IT admin, as a security analyst? The thing is, it's not like the olden days where organizations had just work group connected machines where end user systems were connected via work groups or home networks or Windows home groups. Active Directory was an important part of IT infrastructures from a long, long time. And now organizations are slowly looking towards the cloud. They're looking towards cloud services like Azure Active Directory, for example. So what I'm trying to say here is the IT landscape has broadened, right? It's just not an on-premise system. It's just not a single domain joined computer. There are cloud elements in an IT environment now. Data is not just stored across Windows file servers, but now data is stored across other data storage devices as well, like NetApp, EMC, etc. Right? So why ADAudit Plus? How can it help you? Now, the thing is, when you have such a broad IT landscape where computers are connected, data is hosted, permissions are granted, users are accessing all these resources day in and day out, 24/7. Administration mistakes, well, they are bound to happen, right? And these administration mistakes may lead to a security incident, which may lead to leakage of your data, which may lead to data exposure, or which may even lead to exposure of the privacy of your employees who work in your organization, right? So what I'm trying to say here is every cyber attack that has happened in 2020 and in 2021 as well is connected to an internal administration error or a change, a security change in an IT infrastructure that probably went unnoticed or that probably was not noticed by the IT admin or the security analyst. Right now, we cannot blame the IT admins here. We cannot blame security analysts here because infrastructures are so huge. There's a lot of security changes happening. There are a lot of resources hosted. There are a lot of permissions granted, revoked day in and day out, users logging in and out of systems, in and out of endpoints and member servers. There's a lot to look into, right? So it's not easy for a system admin or even a team of admins to monitor an entire IT infrastructure. And when things go missing, when things go unnoticed, we can't really blame them because at the end of the day, admins and security analysts are also human beings like us, right? There's only so much a human can do, right? That's when ADAudit Plus comes in because ADAudit Plus is capable of monitoring your infrastructure. Yes, I'm talking about Active Directory. I'm talking about Azure Active Directory. I'm talking about the servers connected in your Active Directory infrastructure, like your member servers, workstations, workgroup machines. I'm talking about your file servers. I'm talking about your other data storage servers like NetApp, EMC, etc. So what ADAudit Plus, in a nutshell, essentially does is it monitors all these parts of your infrastructure, your on-premise part, your cloud part, and it monitors them for changes, permission changes, attribute level changes, security changes. And if there is a change, you as an admin will immediately be alerted, right? So what we can't do using the native tools, what we can't do using tools like Windows Event Viewer or PowerShell, ADAudit Plus can. Right now, if we look back into the attacks that happened back in 2020, for example, the Twitter incident where cryptocurrency scams were tweeted out from accounts of various celebrities as Elon Musk or Apple or Samsung. This happened because a bunch of internal Twitter employees, they had broad access to an admin server. An attacker somehow socially engineered or socially manipulated these employees to give out the credentials to that privileged server. And eventually the attacker had his or her hands on that admin server. The attacker was able to trigger a password reset on all of these accounts, the accounts of Elon Musk, Samsung, Apple, etc. And then the attacker was able to tweet out the cryptocurrency scams, right? And it was only when the tweets went live that Twitter realized that an internal server had been compromised, that credentials had been compromised, and that credentials had been reset on all of these accounts, right? The automobile company Honda was subject to a ransomware attack. More specifically, it's called as the Snake ransomware attack. And this happened because an internal user's remote desktop credentials were exposed on the internet. The attacker got hands on these credentials, and that user happened to be an administrator as well, right? Now, this ransomware attack, this Snake ransomware attack, assumes admin privilege, right? So even before it strikes, it already has admin privilege. This is also known as a targeted ransomware attack. And the fact that the Snake ransomware attack was successful on Honda, and the fact that Honda had to shut down its operations for more than a month, basically means that an admin's credentials were leaked on the internet. An attacker got hold of these credentials, and Honda was compromised, right? Another example is a Japanese telecommunications company called NTT. They had an Active Directory server. A compromised endpoint in Singapore led to a compromised server that was in close proximity with the Active Directory domain controller. And eventually, the domain controller was compromised as well, right? So what I'm trying to say here is, in the case of Twitter, access to that privileged server and password resets were not monitored, which led to the security incident. In the case of Honda, admins' remote credentials were not secured properly, which led to this incident. In the case of NTT, the compromised endpoint in Singapore, the access to the internal server, all of these accesses were not detected, which again led to the attack. And every attack leads to every attack happens due to an internal administration mistake. And if we are able to track these security changes that are happening on our users, on our systems connected in our network, then we could at least stop the spread of the attack before we incur heavy losses, right? So I'm going to start off with a simple example before we actually jump into ADAudit Plus. I'm going to open up my browser right here. And this is PowerShell, just a command line tool, nothing fancy happening here. I have a script on my window. So this is my desktop. I've got a script called the domain password spray script. And here's what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to import the script that I just showed you called the domain password spray. And I'm going to run a command called invoke domain password spray. And I'm going to give in the password, which happens to be password at 123, a predictable password, a commonly used password, but still widely used in organizations. And once I enter, once I confirm, once I say yes, here you've got users and their plain text passwords, right? So what just happened here? A user launched a PowerShell session, used a simple PowerShell script, the domain password spray script in this case, just a bunch of functions, some code, and launched a password spray attack on Active Directory user, right? This attack could be performed by anybody, including your non-privileged users as well. All your non-privileged users need is PowerShell and this script, which again is freely available on the internet. All you got to type in is domain password spray and you get the script from GitHub, right? Now, how do you monitor this particular attack? What would you do, right? Where would you get started, right? So in order to monitor such attacks, or in order to monitor any security change on your domain, what you essentially need to do is you need to enable the required audit policies, right? So if you head on to your domain controller's policy, and if you head into audit policies, you find a lot of policies right here that are basically ways to monitor security changes on your domain. For example, if there is an account logon activity, whether the logon was successful or whether the logon was a failure, you can monitor such activities by enabling these events, right? You can monitor the success and failure of such activities, right? Similarly, if a user on your Active Directory domain was changed, or if a security group was changed, or if a computer was modified, or if permissions were modified, you can monitor that by enabling these audit policies, right? And similarly, you've got a lot more right here. For example, you can monitor your files and folders by enabling audit file share, audit file system, and audit detailed file share. And you can monitor the changes in your group policies itself. And what I'm trying to say here is once you enable the required audit policies, what happens is all the security changes start coming in inside a console called your Windows Event Viewer, right? So this is your event viewer on my domain controller in this case. And when I've enabled my audit policies, any security change happening on my user, on my computer, or any other object in Active Directory, or even a simple log off and a log on activity will all be recorded here, right? So the only way you can detect such attacks on your network or such attack attempts on your network is by monitoring the events that are audited on your domain, right? So what I'm trying to say here is auditing the one weapon for you to detect security changes. It could be a change of that was triggered by a help desk technician or another admin in your network. It could be an attacker trying to break into your Active Directory environment or any other environment, like, for example, the password spray attack I showed you. It could be a change that was triggered by an application or Windows service or a task. And no matter what it is, if you want to find out what is triggering a change, or if you want to monitor things on your domain, you'll have to enable security auditing, right? Now, everything is good, right? Active Directory has a lot of policies using which you can track things that are happening in Active Directory in detail. You can get to know everything, a simple log on, log off, an object change, a process that was created or terminated. You can get to know everything. And all you got to do is monitor the security log inside your event viewer, right? But what's the problem with the security log? The problem with the security log is that all the security changes on your domain, they're just dumped into this one location, right? They're not sectioned properly, they're not categorized properly. And in the simplest of terms, you cannot look at these events and instantly tell what's happened on your domain, right? For example, file system. Can you look at this one event and tell me what's happened on your domain? The answer to that question is no. If you open it up, yes, you may get a few more details, but then again, there's no clear or a complete picture of what's happened on your domain, right? That's how Windows auditing is. That's how Microsoft auditing works. That's how it's been from many, many years now, right? You enable the audit policies, the event starts coming in, you can view the events, but then again, you cannot drill down on it. And it's extremely difficult for you to understand the meaning or the reason behind an audited event, right? And if you can't understand the reason behind an audited event, how could you plan the next steps of action? So this is the problem with auditing, whether it's Active Directory, whether it's cloud, whether it's file or folder auditing. It's that all events are dumped into a single location, right? You do not have many sorting or filtering features when it comes to auditing, right? And these events that you see, they are only retained for a specific amount of time. And once this security log, once this log gets full, events are either overwritten or events must be deleted to accommodate new events, right? So either ways, you're at loss here. When you overwrite older events, you may lose certain important events. And when you wait for events to be dropped in order to accommodate new events, you may fail to notice new security changes on your domain, right? And of course, when it comes to a hybrid IT environment where you've adopted AD, where you've adopted, let's say, Azure Active Directory, AD does not audit Azure events. Azure does not audit Active Directory events. And sometimes you'll have to compare and contrast to truly understand what's happening. All right. So how can ADAudit Plus help? What can ADAudit Plus do? ADAudit Plus essentially monitors your environment. It could be Active Directory, it could be member servers, it could be workstations, it could be file servers. It takes the logs of all these devices in your network, right? It segregates them. Let me quickly head to ADAudit Plus and show you what's happening here. So this is ADAudit Plus, right? So what ADAudit Plus essentially does is it takes the logs of all the devices connected in your Active Directory domain, right? It could be activities on your users, it could be activities on your groups, it could be changes on your group policies. So what it basically does is it takes all of these logs and it segregates them into reports that are categorized object-wise, that are categorized operation-wise, which makes it easier for you to monitor your Active Directory domain, right? Now, for example, I just performed this password attack on your domain, right? And I got access to the passwords of 2 users. Now, how would I check for this attack on an Active Directory network? The first thing I do is I'd head into the event viewer and I'll check for log on and log off events, right? So the log on event is 4624. So I'm going to right click on the security log. I'm going to say filter current log, and I'm going to say filter by logons because I'm trying to monitor a password attack on my domain, right? And there are close to 50 logon events here. And this is just my workstation, right? I'm sorry, there are close to 1,480 logon events here. And this is just my workstation, meaning only I have access to this machine. What if you're trying to monitor logons to a member server where multiple users are logging in and out of that server? Right? What if you need to monitor logons across all your endpoints, all your member servers, all your domain controllers? You can start to see how things get more and more complicated. And this is where we make things easy for you, because what we do is we take those logs, we fetch those logs, and we segregate them into reports that are easy to read and easy to understand. For example, do you see this called logon failures? This checks for logon failures on your entire domain. So I'm just going to say logon failures from the last 30 days, or let's just say logon failures from the last 7 days. I'm hoping to find some report data here. Okay. Okay, so looks like we don't have much data out here. Let me quickly open up my console and see if we have some data that I can show you. Reports, log on failures. Let's just say yesterday, or let's say the last 7 days. Apply. Well, I apologize. I can't find any reports at this moment, but let me make this simpler for you, right? So what happens is, oh, here you go. So what happens is ADAudit Plus fetches these logs and it segregates those logs, it sections those logs into reports that are easy to read and easy to understand, right? You can use those reports to find a particular logon failure, meaning you can search for specific users. You can go back in time and search for events that have occurred. You can search for logons across multiple domain controllers. If you do have multiple domain controllers in your environment, you can monitor logons across your member servers, your workstations, your domain controllers, of course. The list simply goes on, right? So in the simplest of words, we take those logs, we section those logs into reports that are categorized very well, that are searchable, right? So you can quickly understand what's happening on your Active Directory domain, right? So as soon as you log into ADAudit Plus, you are greeted with a dashboard that basically tells you everything that's happened on your Active Directory network. Like what are the logon failures, which could be indications of a brute force attack attempt. And there's a lot more, right? So that's the major advantage of ADAudit Plus. We audit all the objects in your domain. For example, in case of Active Directory, we look into your users, if there are users created, if there are users whose passwords were changed, if there are users whose attributes were changed. For example, a helpless technician could simply open up your Active Directory users in Computers console, find a particular user, and then simply reset the password of that user, right? Or even open up that user account and head into properties and try and change the attribute values of those users. For example, the logon hours of the users can be changed, right? Or even the user's password can be set to never expires, right? Or permissions, explicit permissions on that user could be changed. For example, I could give a user full control over Jennifer, which means that user can manage Jennifer, can reset her password, can reset her properties. The list simply goes on, right? Not just for users, the same logic applies to your groups, to your computers, to your organizational units, where attributes can be changed and even permissions can be changed. Security permissions can be changed. And no matter what change it must be monitored, right? So the reports that you see right here are categorized object-wise. You've got your user reports, you've got your group reports, where every activity, for example, members added to groups, members removed from groups, are all monitored. You can even monitor attribute values. And again, these reports are searchable. You can go back in time, search these reports. You can export these reports into a CSV file, into a PDF file. You can share it with your teammates. And everything you see in these reports are also actionable. Now, what do I mean by actionable? You can simply head into the admin tab, right? You can simply head into the configuration tab that you see right here, and you can create an alert profile. And once you create an alert profile, you can set up alerts for specific activities on these reports, right? So if I head into view or modify alert profiles, then there are a few pre-configured alerts that we've given you. But if you wanted to, you can build separate alerts as well, right? So for example, if I search for logon, here you go, logon failures for admin users. We've already built an alert for you, right? So let's talk about how you could configure Active Directory auditing. All you got to do is head into the domain settings tab. Once you're in the domain settings tab, just click on add domain. Once you say add domain, give in your domain name, right? And give in an account, right? Now, this account could be a domain admin account, but we do understand that least privilege is important. Not everybody wants to give domain admin privileges on various areas of your network. So do ensure that your account has these privileges, right? Your account has to be a member of the group policy creator owners group. your account has to be a member of the event log readers group, and your account must have manage auditing and security log GPO privilege, right? So where do you find all these? Where do you find this privilege? Just open up your group policies, head into local policies, head into user rights assignment, and inside user rights assignment, you find something called manage auditing and security log. And as you can see, our ADAP domain for Zoho, the account has privileges on this particular audit policy right here, right? So give your account this privilege, give your account the membership of the group policy creator owners group, event log readers group, which of course can be accessed from the Active Directory users and computers tool. Just hit the search tab, just search for the required group, in this case, the event log readers group. Just add your user to that group and also add your user to the group policy creator owners group. And once you add your users to these two groups, and once you give your user the required group policy privilege, just head into ADAudit Plus, create the domain, of course, given the new account that you just created. Once you hit save, you will get a yellow pop-up on top of your screen that will ask you to, that will basically ask you if you want to configure the required group policies automatically, right? So the beauty of ADAudit Plus is you needn't enable all these group policies manually. You need to do that manually. As soon as you add the user right here inside the domain settings tab, you will receive a pop-up. And once you enable the required pop-up, once you say, yes, please configure the group policies or the audit policies for me, all the audit policies, all the policies that I just spoke about will be configured automatically, and you can read all of them. And once they are configured, all the events will start coming in to your Active Directory tab right here, right? You can change the event fetch interval. It could be real time. You can set it on a scheduled basis, but I would recommend real time because it's always good to stay on top of security changes on your domain. So the moment an event falls inside your event viewer on your Active Directory domain, the event will automatically be fetched by the account that you've given here, the account that has these privileges, and you can read all of those events from the reports tab. It's that simple, right? So that's point number one. Active Directory auditing, ADAudit Plus can do that for you in depth. It monitors all your objects. It looks into permission changes like OUs, containers, group policies, etc. And there are a lot of reports here that you can leverage, and you can monitor your Active Directory domain inside out. All right. Let's talk about the cloud, or more importantly, Azure Active Directory. Right now, I wanted to talk about this because many people like yourself around the world are adopting cloud services like Azure Active Directory, right? So how do you configure Azure AD auditing? It's pretty straightforward. Just head into the configuration tab. You've got something called Cloud Directory, right? And click on Add Tenant, right? Now you can add your Azure tenant right here. All you need is the name of your tenant, the client ID, and the client secret, right? Now, how do you get your client ID and the client secret? This is how you do it. Head into your Azure AD console. Once you're inside your Azure AD console, just head into Azure Active Directory, right? And over there, click on App Registrations and create a new app registration. Give the app a name. Just call it ADAudit Plus and hit register. Once you've registered the app, you can find the client ID right here, right? Simply copy the client ID, head back into ADAudit Plus and paste it right there, right? Once you've copied the client ID, here's what you need to do. Give the app the required permissions to fetch events from Azure Active Directory. So like Active Directory has events inside the security tab of the event viewer, right? Similarly, Azure AD has something called audit logs from where ADAudit Plus can fetch events from. So once you copy the client ID, you need to give the app the required permissions to fetch events from Azure, right? So head into API permissions, click on add a permission, select the Microsoft Graph API, and click on application permissions. And inside this, head into directory, right? Directory, and give your application the read all and basically the read all permission alone should suffice, right? So once you hit add permissions, the API that you just created will have the required permissions. And after that, here's what I need you to do. Head into certificates and secrets, right? And create a new client secret, right? So once you create a new client secret, you will basically get a value. You can set the expiry date for the client secret. In this case, it could be 12 months, it could be never. The choice is up to you. So once you create a new client secret, just copy the ID, head into ADAudit Plus, paste the client secret. Once you hit add, your Azure console is set up, and basically everything, all your Azure events will start coming into ADAudit Plus, right? So again, I'd like to repeat myself. To set up Active Directory auditing, head into Domain Settings tab, click on Add Domain, given the domain name, click on Authentication, given an account with just the required privileges, and these are the privileges you need to give. Your account needs to be the members of these groups, and your account needs to have this group policy privilege, which can be accessed from the local policies, user rights assignment, and manage auditing and security law, right? For Azure Active Directory, head into your Azure AD console, uh, basically head into app registrations, create a new registration. Once you finish registering an application, head into API permissions, give your account the required permissions, basically head into Microsoft Graph, application permissions, and directory right here. Just look for directory and give it the required permissions. Once you give the required permissions, head into certificates and secrets, create a new client secret, right? And not to worry, everything about configuration is all present within our help document. So all you got to do is inside your ADAudit Plus console, click the question mark. It will take you to our help document. And inside that, head into configuration, head into configure cloud directory, and everything you need to do. All the permissions you need to add, all the permissions you need to give to the application, every step is right here, right? Similarly, for Active Directory as well, we have given all the steps, all the privileges that you need to get audit data from Active Directory. So just click on the question mark, it'll take you to the help document, and you got everything you need right here, right? So what we've essentially done is we've started fetching events from Active Directory Event Viewer and also from Azure Active Directory. Basically, what we started fetching now is our audit logs within Azure and our sign-in logs as well. Basically, log on and log off events, right? Do bear in mind that the sign-in logs, they require a premium license. So if you want to monitor logins and log offs to your Azure or sign in and sign offs from your Azure environment, do get the premium license. And once you do that, the sign-in logs will start getting recorded right here in Azure, and all the events in Azure will start pouring into ADAudit Plus, which can be accessed from the Reports tab, Azure AD tab, and there are many reports here which will come in handy for you, right? So this is how simple it is to set up auditing in ADAudit Plus. Domain settings tab for Active Directory, admin tab, configuration tab, cloud directory configuration for Azure AD changes, right? Now, how are these reports better than Azure Active Directory? Let me just give you one simple example here, right? Let's say I want to find out a simple thing like users who were granted an admin role within Azure. I just want a list of users who were granted an admin role, right? Now, how could I do that? I can click on the service tab. I can select the code directory service. I can click on the category tab. I can select role management because I'm basically trying to find out users who are granted admin roles. And I should find a few logs right here, right? Now, I'm not going to lie. The auditing or the filtering features of Azure are a little better than what Active Directory has to offer. But then again, these are not up to the mark, right? For example, all the logs that you see right here, right? So let me quickly show you a few logs. So all the logs that you see right here will only be stored for 7 days on a free license and for 30 days on a premium license, right? So if you want logs for more than 30 days, you can't get them from Azure. That's just an example of one limitation, right? Here's one more example right here, right? There's a log here that says update application, right? We get to know which user made this change. We get to know on which application this change was made, right? So this is great because we get to know all of these details which were otherwise absent in Active Directory. But for a few other logs like group management or role management, you cannot find the group name or you cannot find the role name, right? So what I'm trying to say here in the simplest of words is a few logs are good, but for a few other logs like group membership changes or role changes, you cannot find the information on the eye. You'll have to basically open up the log, head into targets, head into modified properties to truly find what's happening, right? So Azure logging a little better than Active Directory, but still a few things are missing, which we can help you with, right? So here's one such example. So if I head into hybrid logon activity right here, do you see this? These reports help you monitor your cloud logon activity and on-premise logon activity together, right? If you didn't use ADAudit Plus, you'll have to switch between Azure AD. You'll have to switch between Active Directory to monitor for logs. But we bring those two for you in a single pane of glass, making things easier for you. If I head into logon activity, for example, right, the logon activity report right here has your users on-premise details and has your users Azure details as well. So if you have connected Active Directory and Azure environments, you can truly find out what's happening, right? Now the password spray attack that I just showed you, this attack can be launched on Azure from an Active Directory endpoint, right? So in that such cases, it's important for you to fetch on-premise logs, to fetch Azure logs, and correlate them to truly understand what's happening. And that's when ADAudit Plus can help, right? If I head further down, let's say group management, let's say recently added members to groups, right? These reports will tell you users who were added to Azure AD groups, right? Which is great. Even the native logs can do this for you, right? But what's the advantage of these reports? How are these reports better than your default Azure logs? I'm just going to give this a few seconds to load. Let me try and get the report for you. Okay, so how is this better is you can search for a group name and you can find out which group was exactly modified, right? And you can't do this kind of a search or you can't do this level of filtering with the Azure logs. You'll have to click each log and you'll have to go in and understand what's happening, but we make things simpler for you. We let you search what Azure doesn't let you search, right? Now, there's a lot of advantages of our reports when compared to the Azure logs that we will cover in an upcoming session, perhaps. But yes, Azure AD auditing, that's how you set it up. That's how your logs start coming in, right? We've also got something called the file audit tab right here. But before I head into the file audit tab, I wanted to talk about something important, and that is archival, right? Remember, I told you in Active Directory, events must be overwritten or events must be manually deleted to accommodate the newer events. Well, ADAudit Plus can help you defeat that because ADAudit Plus can archive your events so you can store them on a local server and you can restore the archived events, right? Remember when I told you Azure events are deleted after 30 days, there's no way you can get back Azure events. But with ADAudit Plus, you can archive Azure events, store them on a local server. You can bring them back into ADAudit Plus whenever you want, and you can view them from the reports tab, right? Just one more advantage of how ADAudit Plus can come in handy, right? Now let's talk about data storage. So we've got our Windows file servers, we've got our Windows file clusters, we've got a NetApp EMC, many file servers in our environment. Each file server has its own console, has its own way to view the audited changes, but we make things simpler for you. We audit all those file servers from just this one pane of glass, right? And let me exactly dictate how, let me show you how we make things simpler for you. Now, what you typically do in an Active Directory environment to enable file server auditing is you head into the advanced audit policies. You, let's say, head into object access, and then you enable the required audit policies. Basically, you enable audit file share, audit file system, audit, and audit handle manipulation, right? So these are more than enough for you to enable file auditing on your domain. And once you enable these audited events, what happens next is you'll have to open up a file or folder. Now I have a Linux folder right here, right? So I'll have to open up that folder. I'll have to head into the properties. I'll have to head into security, click on advanced, click on auditing, and give my user the required privileges to view the changes or to view the audited events on that file or folder, right? So let me repeat this. You have to enable auditing. Once you enable auditing, you'll have to go onto your files and folders, and you'll have to head into the security tab, the advanced tab, the auditing tab, and give your users or group the required privileges to view the audited events on that folder, right? A lot of work when it comes to monitoring multiple files and folders stored across your Windows file servers, NetApp, EMC, etc. But that's when ADAudit Plus simplifies things for you, right? Now, let's say I configure a Windows file server. I'm just going to say add a server. I'm going to select a server. And let's say I want to set up auditing for these shares. Right? So let's just give this a few seconds. Looks like the internet hasn't blessed me today. Add server. I'm going to select a server. I'm going to say select share. So I'm going to select a share to be audited on that server. And here you go. Do you see what's happening here? The group policies will automatically be enabled, right? And the auditing that you have to set on each file and folder in order for your users to view the audited events will also be automatically enabled by ADAudit Plus, right? So you needed manually enable auditing for files and folders. ADAudit Plus will do that for you. And of course, there are reports here that will give you in-depth details of all your files and folder changes in ADAudit Plus, right? How are these reports better than what the Windows Event Viewer offers for you? Let me just give you one simple example right? Now, what happens is, let's say you have a Microsoft document in your environment, right? And once, let's say your user has opened the document and has worked on the document for an hour, and then your user decides to close that document, right? Once your user closes the document, if you have to monitor the changes on that document, you'll find a total of 230 events inside the event viewer. Now, how is this possible? It's just a single file, a single user, and who's worked on a file for an hour and then closed the file. How are there 230 events? The reason for that is because Microsoft by default uses a feature called autosave, right? Now, whenever file servers or files are auto-saved, Windows thinks it's a new file that's being created and saved, right? Windows doesn't think that it's the same file that's been worked on. And that produces a high volume of logs, like 230 logs. And how can you basically find a modification or a change on a file and folder from 230 logs that is dumped into the same old location that's your event viewer? Not too easy, right? Windows file and folder auditing has a lot of missing features. For example, let's say I do not have access to a file or folder, but then I try to access that file or folder, right? Access was obviously denied, but Windows does not record access denied attempts. Recording access denied attempts or access failure attempts is crucial for you to detect any activity that's happening on your domain, right? Let me give you one more example right here. Let's say you've cut a file and you pasted it in another location. So when you cut a file, when you paste it in another location, Windows thinks it's a file deletion and a file creation. Windows does not understand the difference between delete, rename, cut, and paste and move, right? which again makes auditing all the more difficult, right? These are the events when it comes to file server auditing. And like I said, a simple activity like a user opening a document, editing it, and closing it may produce a total of 230 events inside this, which makes auditing all the more difficult. But we've made it simple for you because we fetch all the events, we categorize them into reports that are easy to read, easy to understand, that are searchable, that can be gone back in time. And of course, we audit failed attempts as well. Auditing failed attempts is crucial to protect any data leakage in your environment, and we do that for you. This is something Windows does not do, right? Now, there's a lot that's happening in ADAudit Plus. For example, we monitor changes on your member servers, your workstations, your workgroup machines as well. For example, if a user is executing a PowerShell script, right? We monitor the PowerShell script execution. We tell you what the script is. We tell you what code block is in the script. We tell you what commands have been invoked by your users as well. So you get to know who the user is. You get to know what the command is. You get to know on what server it was executed. And of course, you can set up alerts as well, right? There are a lot more reports here. For example, if there are USB devices that are being plugged into your systems and data is being copied or pasted, we monitor that for you. If there are processes, services that are installed on your member servers or your workstations, services that were stopped, it could be indications of a ransomware attack. We monitor that for you, and there are a lot more reports here that will come in handy. And do remember that all these reports are actionable, meaning there are there are many alerts here that you can instantly leverage to detect events that are occurring in your Active Directory, your Azure, your files and folders. If you wanted to, you can create new alerts as well. Speaking about alerts, alerts are extremely customizable, right? So you can just give the alert a name. You can choose a report on which you'd like to set up alerts for example, password modify failure reports, and you can set up alerts. For example, if there are more than 10 logon failures occurring in under a minute, then throw me an alert. If a file or folder is being accessed outside of business hours, then throw me an alert. If a user with a specific username, right, if is executing a script or a command on a server with a specific server name or a computer name, then give me an alert, right? We let you set up alerts based on threshold, based on business hours, based on certain attributes like usernames, server names, group names, even based on scripts as well. We notify you via email, via SMS, and we let you run a remedial action as well. Now, what's a remedial action? Let me tell you this with an example. Let's say there's a password spray attack on your domain, right? And you set up an alert that monitors for password attacks. You set up an alert that monitors for malicious PowerShell scripts. You receive an alert, and you also have a script here that kind of terminates the user who's trying to perform the attack, or disables the user who's trying to perform the attack, or simply shuts down the user's system. So not just alerting, we let you counter the generated alerts because you can set up a custom script here using which you can plan an action, a mitigation action to a generated alert, right? There's a lot more. For example, if I head into the analytics tab, this is very, very useful because this monitors your user behavior for changes. And each time there's a deviation from normal user behavior or established user behavior, you will receive an alert, right? For example, let's say there's a user who's logging on to a member server remotely for the first time, right? This is a deviation from a user behavior. The user has no job logging onto that server. Then why is the user doing it? So what these reports do, what the analytics tab does, is they establish a baseline of what's normal in your environment. And each time there is a deviation from the established baseline, you will immediately receive an alert. There are a lot more reports here. For example, if there's a new process on a server, if there are many files or folders that are trying to move, that the user is trying to move, access, or delete, you will receive an alert. So this is behavioral level monitoring, and this is something we can do as well. And there are a lot more that we can do. You can, like I said, you can archive events, you can restore events into ADAudit Plus. So basically, you can save all these events on a local server. bring them back in, view them from the reports tab whenever you want to. And of course, there's a lot more that we can do, right? So I've conducted a webinar series called What's New webinar series, where I've spoken about everything new in ADAudit Plus. So I will be happy to share that link with you. I'm going to check with my team quickly and share the link to the What's New webinar series. If you're an existing user of ADAudit Plus, if you want to know what's new in ADAudit Plus, then I'll quickly share that link with you so you can take a look at it. And I have one more surprise for you because you were so patient. This is our page. It's called IT security under attack. And what we've done here is we've covered various attacks on your Active Directory environments, on your Azure environments, on your files and folders, on your Windows environments. And we have shown you how you could detect the attack with ADAudit Plus and Log 360 as well, right? For example, here's the password spree attack. You get to know how the attack works. You get to see a live demo of the attack. And then we've also built solutions. So how you could detect that attack on your domain with ADAudit Plus, how can you set up an alert and the like. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to quickly share a link to this page using the chat window. So if you want to leverage, if you want to see live examples of how ADAudit Plus can help you detect certain attacks, or how Log 360 can help you detect certain attacks, then this page will do that for you. We've covered AD, we've covered Azure, we've covered files and folder types of attacks, and do bookmark this page because every month we will be adding in a new set of attacks to this page as well, right? So this can be like your guidebook to detecting specific attacks using ADAudit Plus or Log 360, right? So that is about it for today. I hope you found the session informative. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. And do not forget, ADAudit Plus has a question mark right inside of it that will take you to the help document and that will tell you everything you need to know that was discussed in today's session. You can also head into the support tab and you can chat with our support folks live who will help you sort out any issues that you may have with ADAudit Plus. And yes, that is about it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention.